Okay, just a word of warning here. I'm going to touch on some heavy topics, but I assure you, if you stick through the end, the message is very positive. And if you've been feeling grief at all because of the state of the world, then this video is absolutely for you. So I haven't made a YouTube video or written anything significant since August, and that's because something happened then. I was in Vancouver, British Columbia, and there were the forest fires happening. And at the same time that the city was filling up with smoke, I was reading this book called Breaking Together by Jem Bendell. Jem was a client scientist. He presented at Davos and UN conferences. And he really went deep in his research and found that things are really much worse than a lot of people are reporting, and that we really don't have a chance to avert a large-scale catastrophe. Now, for this book, he put together a big team of multidisciplinary scientists to look at how all of these systems, especially our climate system, is breaking down, and how we really don't have the technology and we're really not doing anything to avert it. But his book isn't all dire. The first half of the book is about how all of these systems, economic systems, climate systems, financial systems, cultural systems, are all breaking down. And the second half is what we can do about it. Now, the book is called Breaking Together as opposed to breaking apart. The idea is that because things are breaking, we need to come together. Reading this book with the air full of smoke, the forest fires getting worse every year, spending time in forests and really understanding that a lot of these forests were going to be gone soon, that the children today are not going to grow up in the same world that we grew up in. This hit me hard, And Jem also really talks a lot in his book about grief, about the needing to grieve together, and how not only is that healing, but it's clarifying and it allows us to really move forward. Now, I realized that my whole life, I grew up with this idea that we were progressing, that the world was getting better. And reading this, it was really clear that in many ways it's not. Yes, certain things are getting better. Yes, there is progress. But many systems are getting worse, and I think we're all feeling that. The fact is, we really need to accept the truth of this if we're going to approach the world meaningfully, if we're going to live a really meaningful life that is responsive and not reactive. Jem makes his book available online for free. I'll put links to it, and you can also just search Jem Bendell Breaking Together. And even just check out the intro to the book, which gives a summary of the whole thing. And that's also available on audiobook for free. So I was sitting with this grief, and then just a few weeks later, the conflict in Israel-Palestine broke out. And that was just another sign about how we really haven't grown collectively. It's just so clear that violence creates more violence, that Israel's really committing a genocide, trying to completely eradicate people, thinking that there might be some peace on the other side. But it's so clear, to me or anyone who understands trauma, that they're creating so much trauma that will live on in the survivors in the world, that will create more hate, that will just turn into more violence in the future. So I sat with all this for quite a while, really wondering, what can I do? Continuing on with my normal content plan just felt futile. Felt like it wasn't going to make a big difference in the world. It wasn't going to touch these big problems. And so I really just sat with it in contemplation, feeling the grief, wondering what I could do. Ultimately, what became really clear for me around what I need to do is actually live with a more open heart. The works of Chogyam Trungpa, the Buddhist teacher, were very impactful for me. I first started reading his books 20 years ago. And specifically in his book, Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, he talks about living with a tender, open heart. He's very clear. He says, do not close your heart to the world. That just creates more isolation, divisiveness, numbness. What we really need is to have our hearts open and tender, feeling the pain of the world. Now, there's a lot more in this around how to do this skillfully, how not to take on too much. But we do need to have our hearts open. That's really what the world needs. And ultimately, oddly, that brings us actually more fulfillment and happiness, even though we're feeling more pain, even though we're more attuned to the suffering of the world. I really realized that it is not up to any individual to save the world. Sure, individuals can do remarkable things, but nobody goes it alone. Every movement that has changed the world has come from many, many people's efforts. And so taking on this big problem of like, how can I save the world? What can I do? We're not on an individual level going to solve these big problems. But instead, what we can do is we can look for the impact that we have. To me, this means coming together, healing together, grieving together, and loving together, opening our hearts together, sharing our tenderness, sharing our love. What's happened for me in the last few months is that I've felt the pain of the world more than I ever have. And I've also felt beauty and love and gratitude more than I ever have. And you can really hold these things. It's not easy, I think it takes some skillfulness, it takes some learning. But for me, there's no other way. For me, this is a full life. This is the life I want to live. And this is what I want to share. So going forward, my content is very much going to be about this, about how we can grieve together, heal together, but also love together, see the beauty of the world together, and practice gratitude together. One of the ideas I came across that really struck me is called Active Hope. This brilliant woman, Joanna Macy, she's like 90 now. She's a Buddhist and has been an activist for quite a while. And she has a book called Active Hope, which is really putting this idea forward that hope is something that we do. It's something we practice. We can't have passive hope. We can't just sit around and hope the world to get better. Hope is something that needs to be acted upon. And so I know that a lot of people are in difficult situations. A lot of people are really busy just trying to support themselves, support their loved ones, to just get by. Others are in really stressful jobs, really stressful situations in life, and really don't have the time and space to pursue these types of things. But I am very fortunate, and I think many of us are very fortunate, where we do have some time and space to look at what we want to do in the world, to look at how do we want to impact the people around us. And to me, there's nothing more beautiful than this, to practice reciprocity, to not be taking from the world, this idea of I want more, I need more, but instead to be giving. It's so much more liberating. It feels so much better. It makes us feel connected. It makes us feel a part of the large earth community, of a family of humans. So I know it's very easy to get caught in this mindset of I need more nice things, or I need, this nice vacation, whatever it is. And sure, those things are totally okay. I do those things. But I really try to keep some balance. I really try to look at what am I giving? What am I giving to those around me? What am I giving to the world? How am I impacting the people in my life? And the more I've leaned into giving, the more I've supported my friends, the people I meet, the better my life gets. The more beautiful it gets. The more I feel a sense of gratitude for being alive. And so this is really my message. I know it's a really hard time for a lot of people, but if there's some way that you can give to the world, give to the people around you, I think that's the greatest thing. To me, there's nothing more meaningful. There's nothing more heartening. If you cannot let the pain of the world close you up, but actually let it in, let it open you. To me, this is what life is really about. And this is what we really need more of right now, especially. So I know these things are not easy. There are a lot of challenges here. All of my study of Buddhism and psychotherapy has really supported me in finding this way of being for myself in a way that is sustainable, in a way that works. So again, I'm going to be making a lot more content on this. So if this is something that interests you, stay tuned. Thanks for listening, and really, truly wishing you well.